Now, I put this on social media, but I think that we can look at it again. I was concerned about this. When a seasoned barrister of 30 years old at the bar, relies on shallow media to file wobbling applications that allege non-existent bias against, grounds for, what's the I for? Non-existent bias against, there's no I there. Okay. Non-existent bias against judges to push the court into a day of fury. Now, why am I concerned about this? I'm concerned about this because a respected barrister practicing in Ghana, member of the Ghana Bar Association, solicitor of the Supreme Court, goes to court before a review application is heard, and he alleges some bias. I'll come to that. Keep your eye on that. Let me give you the full story. I always assume that there are people who are watching this who don't know much about the story. There are people who are watching this who have not had time to follow the story. So as we do, we're going to give you the full story, and then we will come back to deal with this irresponsible behavior of what we call shallow media, small brain media, media with small brain. That's very dangerous. But media is plural. We can't close down any media. We shouldn't close down any media. This is what the Akufados and co fought for. But media is like food, you see. So if you are selling kenke in the community, and people may like Auntie Mamle, but they know that her kenke is not good. But they like her. They'll buy it anyway. They know it's not good. They may not like Auntie Najama, but they know that her kenke is good. So that's how media is. Whatever you sell, people will be able to make the judgment. So when we see shallow media, we know shallow media. You know, small brain media. Media that comes to a conclusion without any basis. So opinionated media, like what we do, will always have a blue or red outcome. That is to say, when I do opinionated media and I travel to the outcome, some people will like the conclusion, some people will not like it. But people must be able to see the thread, the journey on which I wrote to get to the conclusion. They must respect that research process. They must respect the evidence-based process. And they will respect it if I show them how I got there. They may not like the conclusion. If I'm MPP or I'm NDC and opinion-based media comes to a conclusion that NDC is wrong on this matter, I will not like the outcome, but I have to see the process. And when you see the process and the process is scholarly, the process is reasonable, the process is intellectual, the process is evidence-based, you will know it. When the process is also shallow media, small brain, talking small brain, they just talk small brain media, that's shallow media. So in February 2017, now what am I doing? I'm giving you the story about the whole Opuni case, and I'll drill down to the review application that occurred today, and then I'll have some time to talk about shallow media. In 2017, the Economic and Organized Crimes Office froze the assets of Dr. Opuni as part of investigations into his period as CEO of Cocoa Board. Now you have to understand that Dr. Opuni, during the Mills era, was appointed as the chief executive of the Food and Drugs Board. And later on, he was appointed under the presidency of President Mahama as the chief executive of the Cocoa Board. It was in respect of his activities at the Cocoa Board that I believe that the Yoko decided to look at him from 2017 onwards. And as part of the investigations into his period as CEO of Cocoa Board, consequently, he and one Seydou Adongo were charged of offenses that arose pursuant to the investigation. Some of the charges include money laundering, violation of procurement laws, and defrauding by false pretenses. In the course of the trial, he, Dr. Opuni, leveled accusations against Justice Ononduga, challenging the capacity of the said judge to sit on the case by reason of bias. In July 2021, the Supreme Court, in a majority decision of 3-2, held that Justice Clemens Ononduga ought not to sit on the case. The Attorney General applied for a review of the decision of the bench, and judgment was given today on the 26th of October 2021. So that's the story. So Justice Ononduga, sitting as an additional High Court judge, is hearing the matter. Actually, as you would know, the matter has gotten to the point where Justice Ononduga has heard the prosecution, the entire case of the prosecution. The prosecution have closed their case. Yes. And Opuni and his lawyers have filed a submission of no case, which failed at the High Court level. Yes. Okay. And so later on, they filed this application against Justice Ononduga. Did they file the application against Justice Ononduga for the much complained matter of Ononduga's activities in the Volta region among the Volta chiefs? Is that the reason why they filed it?
Well, it may be alleged that that may be one, but on pages 53, 54, and 55 of the case of the, in this instance, the plaintiff, that was Opuni became the plaintiff in that instance. He contended or alleged that if you look at the writing or the judgment or the ruling of Justice Ononduga in the submission of no case, it sought to evince certain elements or traits of bias against the Mr. Opuni, because there were certain references the honorable judge made, that made it seem as though he already believed that Mr. Opuni was guilty even before he ruled.
So it was on the basis of these that they filed the application
and then,
asking for Justice Ononduga to recuse himself from the matter. Okay, let's look at the panel that heard the first instance of the matter. Okay, so this was the panel that heard the matter. Was it this year? It was earlier this year.
Yes, earlier this July.
Okay, so this panel most likely would have been led by Justice Jones-Doche. So it was Jones-Doche here, Mrs. Justice Avril Lovelace Johnson, formerly called Eni Yeboah, Mr. Justice Gabriel Puaman, Mr. Justice Amadou Tanko, and Madam Justice Agnes Doji. So if we look at if we were to take the history of these judges, Justice Doche was appointed onto the bench by President Kufuor. Justice Avril Lovelace Johnson was appointed by President Kufuor. Justice Gabriel Puaman
to the
Supreme Court, yes.
Johnson was by Akufo-Addo.
Johnson was by Akufo-Addo.
Yes,
oh, recently, yes.
Recently,
correct.
was recently.
Gabriel Puaman was by John Mahama.
Yes, please.
Amadou Tanko was by Akufo-Addo. And Agnes Doji.
Akufo-Addo. So
Agnes Doji was by Akufo-Addo.
Akufo-Addo.
Okay, so that's fantastic. So the bench that we have here, it had Gabriel Puaman appointed by John Mahama, Justice Doche appointed by President Kufuor, and the rest appointed by Akufo-Addo. What verdict did we get from this bench?
So they ruled that indeed the case of Opuni ought to stand, and the Honorable the Judge, Clement Ononduga, should recuse himself from hearing the matter on the basis of bias.
But they ruled on a 3-2 decision. It's a split decision. Okay, so let's isolate the two that ruled against the Ononduga. That would be Jones-Doche and Avril Yeboah.
Yes.
So the two of them ruled that Ononduga should continue.
Yes.
And these three ruled that Ononduga should recuse himself.
Yes.
So that was His Lordship Justice Amadou Tanko, Her Lordship Justice Agnes Doji, and His Lordship Justice Gabriel Puaman. Three of them ruled that Ononduga should leave. Two of them, Justice Jones-Doche and Avril Yeboah, ruled that Ononduga should continue. Now let's look at the review application. Let's look at the grounds of the review application that the Attorney General filed. So after this is a 3-2 decision of the ordinary bench of the Supreme Court. And then the Attorney General, being very concerned about the matter, filed a review application, which is part of the court's process. Now let's listen to some of the things that he wrote to the court. So he said that a decision to prohibit a trial judge who has conducted a criminal trial for almost 4 years, at which the prosecution has called all of his witnesses from further hearing of the matter, must be on the basis of only compelling circumstances. I can understand the Attorney General's position. You get it, don't you?
Yes.
He's saying that this case has been going on for 4 years. The prosecution have called everybody they need to call. The defense has had the opportunity to cross-examine all the prosecution witnesses. Yes. The prosecution have closed their case. They are not adding anything more. Everything the prosecution will say, we know. As far as Opuni is concerned, the important thing for him, where he needs a fair and unbiased umpire, it is when the prosecution are rendering the case against him. Yeah, and that has happened. Really, that's what the Attorney General is saying, that the worst part of it has already happened. And you have not complained about the processes. That when the witnesses were called, your lawyers were not allowed to cross-examine them, or documents that you wanted to bring in, the judge didn't want you to bring. You are not alleging any of these things. So clearly, you are probably trying to waste time or extend the matter or something. That's the point that Attorney General is making. That the worst part of the case against any criminal trial is when the prosecution is rendering the case against you. When the prosecution have finished rendering the case against you, really, what are you saying about the bias judge? But let's move on. What else did he say? He said the bias must be on substantial grounds, and it should show an indisputable bias on the part of that judge, and not on account of matters as complained about by the respondent hearing. And you are saying some of the things they complain about is that some of the words that the judge used
in the ruling,
it looked like he was against Opuni. This is after he has heard the matter.
Exactly.
And this was on the submission of no case.
Okay. The ruling on the submission of no case.
The Attorney General says that the decision of the ordinary bench results in a substantial miscarriage of justice. Now, the decision of the ordinary bench that he refers to is the earlier decision in favor of Opuni.
The first one we looked at.
Results in a substantial miscarriage of justice, since it has the effect of placing the case in the hands of a new judge who has not had the benefit of the full trial, observing the demeanor and composure of the various witnesses called by the prosecution, and assessing their credibility. Okay, let's move on. He says that if a trial de novo that if a trial de novo, that's all over again. A trial starting all over again. So let's just change that. De novo is Latin. We don't want Latin. So if a trial starts all over again, a new trial of the respondent herein results from the decision of this court dated 28 July 2001. Same will occasion substantial miscarriage of justice, as the constitutional requirements of fair and expeditious trial will not only be violated, but also the prosecution will be put to enormous expense, inconvenience, and hardship in commencing a new trial. What the Attorney General is saying is that we have done our work. As prosecution, we've finished. We've done our work. They've had opportunity to look at our documents. They've had opportunity to cross-examine our witnesses. If you go and bring a new judge, we have to do the same thing again. They are not complaining about anything we've done. We have done the work. We've finished with them. We've told them where we think that he's guilty of a criminal process or where we think he may be guilty of the criminal process. We are leaving it to the empire. It's now their turn to open their defense. They have the field. They can deal with it. So why are you going to ask a new judge to come on an allegation that's not substantial? Tonight we'll be considering the Supreme Court benchmark for a substantial allegation of bias set by Salah and Attorney General. When was it? 1969. 1969. We'll be bringing you that case. Very interesting. So watch out for that. So this is what Attorney General is saying. Now he goes on to say that the gross and fundamental errors contained in the decision of the ordinary bench have resulted. Now the Attorney General says, it's quite strong words, isn't it? He says there's gross and fundamental errors contained in the first decision of the Supreme Court. And he says they have resulted in a substantial miscarriage of justice and rendered this as a fit and proper case for the invocation of the Honorable Court's review jurisdiction to rectify the errors. Okay, he's arguing before the court that he's invoking their review jurisdiction to rectify the errors contained in the decision of the ordinary courts. Okay, so this is what the Attorney General says. So he's saying a few things. One, the worst part of the case for a criminal offender has been done. It's been prosecuted. Yes. They are not complaining about the basis of the prosecution. Their complaint originates from words that were used by the judge when he was refusing their submission of no case. And they had earlier complained about the judge saying something elsewhere. Okay, and so the Attorney General says that on these basis, these are not substantial grounds on which you can, as it were, change the change the decision of the as it were, remove the judge and let a new judge come, because the case has traveled 4 years. Another 4 years will mean 8 years. Yeah, exactly. And the constitutional requirement, he says, of fair and expeditious trial will be violated. And that's important for the people of Ghana. This is a criminal process. This is the state against somebody that is against whom is being alleged may have committed some criminal offenses, as quote and unquote, alleged criminal offenses against the Republic. So the Republic is trying him. The Attorney General is saying that it's not in these kinds of situations that you have to change a judge without a substantial case of bias. We'll get to the case of bias very soon.